Please welcome Paul Harrop from AOPA.
We figured out that the most direct route to Lakeland is in fact with a stop at Key West, but then you paid for it. On my first long GA cross country, I'm in the back seat of a Husky, and we go right up Florida, right in the middle of all that bouncy convection. So it was a trade-off, but it was certainly a trip I'll never forget. Some pictures I took of Craig flying his Husky in formation with it still hang on my wall. So thank you for reminding me of one of my most favorite and the trips that started this all out. Well, let me shut up and let the video do some talking. We'll show you a couple minutes of what it is I do for AOPA. I got to tell you, it's pretty good work if you can get it. Thank you very much. That's a collection of, thank you. That was a collection of shots that we've done, and you try to put together some of your best of to show your friends and stuff. So I put that there, and it really, to me, tells a story. Each one of those little clips is 3 or 4 different shots from the same event. Hopefully, that's an example of visual storytelling. It's showing you, okay, here's a guy that's down on a ship. It's in a big piece of water, happened to be the mouth of the Columbia. Oh, we're coming up closer to him. Oh, he's on the hoist now he's in the helicopter. So in the course of 4 seconds and 3 or 4 shots, hopefully your brain pieced it together what happened. But storytelling isn't just visual. Storytelling can be really anything. If you think about the concept of storytelling, it could run the gamut. It could be a loved one telling you your favorite bedtime story when you're a young child. It could be that friend that's got the story that he keeps telling over and over and over again, and that fish just gets bigger and bigger each time. Yeah, you've got a friend like that, I could tell. We all do, because we humans are social creatures, and we engage each other, and we tell our stories through storytelling of different aspects. We at AOPA put out stories, and people watch them every week. And that tells us that people, especially pilots, want to have their minds engaged. They want to live vicariously. They want to fly things that maybe they wouldn't have a chance to, want to go places that maybe are a little inaccessible to them. And our hope is that people will, through our visual storytelling, through our videos, be able to experience those things. And many of them do, and it's a great privilege and humbling honor to see people click play on our stuff. But storytelling and the best stories are not at all about airplanes. They're not at all about places to take airplanes. They're not at all about $100 hamburgers. The best stories are human stories. The best stories are about the people that fly these airplanes. The best stories are about the people that put love and attention into building or restoring or selling or anything to do with them. Because without people, It's a machine. It's metal, and it has soul, and it has a history, and it has a story, but that story is intertwined solely with the women and men who flew it. So we try to focus on a human story, because without that human story, it's just hardware. Speaking of stories, did you hear the one about the little old lady that wanted to go for a bomber ride? Sun and Fun 2012, where Craig and I and Dave Hirschman were heading to when we got lost in the Keys, was my very first air show for AOPA. And I really was still just trying to soak it all in. I didn't know what I didn't know. So I talked my way into a media ride on what was then the only airworthy B-29 Super Fortress, Fifi of the CAF. So I signed my life away on their waivers. I get out to the ramp, and here's this little 92-year-old woman that's going for a ride, and I'm just not really sure what this is all about, but I figured there had to be a story there.
The Florida sun beats down like a spotlight on this star of the Sun and Fun show.
Fifi is a national treasure.
Fifi, the commemorative Air Force's B-29, is the last airworthy super fortress in the world. Dora Doherty came out for a flight in the sole survivor.
One, we made sure she wore blue.
You get in the airplane, you think, how many other people are out there about to fly a B-29 right now? And you realize you're the only group, the only one in the world.
Pilot Colonel David Oliver knows this gal is one of a kind. An icon from a time gone by, back when machines were mighty and men were men.
When the Hornet, the first Shangri-La, pointed her prow right at the heart of Tokyo.
The Pacific, 1943. The war is in full force. Bombers are dropping a daily deluge over Japan, but their range is limited, and so is the aerial effort. For the commanders, it just doesn't cut it.
We're going back to Tokyo, and we shall go in full array and with mighty allies.
At home, thousands work on the dawn of a new delivery device to rain fire over the land of the rising sun.
They were building a plane for the Army Air Forces that would reduce the huge fortresses and Liberators to medium bombers. They were building the Boeing-designed B-29 Super Fortress.
Look past the War Department publicity piece and you get the real story.
It was notorious for unreliable engines. It was also notorious for catching fire and a few other things, I guess. And I guess the men didn't want to fly it, did they?
Those men that were men were scared of the Super Fortress. Many refused to fly it, so the Army Air Corps hatched a radical plan. The man who would go on to make history of his own in a B-29 named the Enola Gay gave two WASPs a shot at the history books by signing them off in the Super Fortress.
Colonel Paul Tibbets recruited two female pilots to get in this airplane.
The first woman to be pilot in command of a B-29, Dora Doherty.
Dora has a very important history with the B-29.
In the summer of 1943, she and Dorothy Mormon flew around to show the boys how it's done.
What was the reaction from the men?
Where's the pilot?
They didn't believe you. When you said you're the pilot, they didn't believe you. And was it hard to fly?
It was so easy, even a woman could fly it.
Now in her 90s, she's taking one more flight on the one last Super Fortress.
I'm glad you're going with us. I'm glad you're getting to. It's an honor.
With the headset on, Dora sits just behind her old spot in the left seat. As the four radios roar to life, the ship becomes a flying time capsule with reminders of how things used to be when machines were mighty. So mighty, the men needed to be shown how to fly them by a one-of-a-kind gal.
Good flight.
Paul Harrop, AOPA Live.
Thank you. All that applause needs to go right to the women of the WASP. My goodness, I can't imagine being in their shoes and then having to fight for the recognition and respect that they had for decades. Dora Doherty, obviously a national hero. She has since passed on, but I still get chills every time I think about taking a Super Fortress ride with the First Lady to fly one. Just one of those once-in-a-lifetime kind of experiences. Well, if you think about once-in-a-lifetime experiences, for us aviators, we're lucky. We get to do things like this occasionally. We get to fly a starship, as a fellow aviator was telling me about earlier. We get to do these amazing things. And that is kind of raising our personal bars. But think about what's a routine flight for you. Could it be giving instruction? Could it be coming down here from a couple hours away? It's a routine flight for you, but you have to remember when you're telling this story, you can tell the story through a flight, and what's an everyday thing for you could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for someone that's not too familiar with what we do in aviation.
Say hello to my not-so-little friend. Fat Albert is a Marine Corps C-130 that transports the crew and equipment for the Blue Angels. Once they're at the shows, Fat Albert gets to show off low-altitude tactics, real maneuvers used in combat. The crowd gets to watch, but a lucky few get to ride on Fat Albert Airlines.
Welcome to Fat Albert Airlines. I'm Major Mike Van Wyck. I'm going to be your left seat pilot today in the right seat.
After a crew and passenger brief, Marine Corps Major Mike Van Wyck invites us to board. For the Major, his tour with the Blue Angels is a dream come true.
I went to an air show when I was in second grade. I stood on the ramp of C-130 and my parents took a picture. And it was what I knew what I wanted to do at that point.
He worked hard and learned to fly after he was in the military, starting in a Cessna 152.
Aviation it's a pursuit of excellence. It's something that's fun, it's a hobby. It's cool to get up there and be in the sky and experience that world, but it's a pursuit of excellence. You're always getting better. You're always developing your skills.
And today, he's going to show those skills off. I'm riding with a few other reporters and several dozen U.S. Coast Guard C-130 crew members. We take off on runway 27 at Lakeland, staying about 5 feet above the deck until we hit show center, pitch up 45 degrees. In the back, we're feeling several positive G's before nosing over at the top and experiencing several negative. It's just awesome. On the flight deck, you can see the crew goes airborne soon, but they're hard at work helping this heavy lifter turn 60 degrees
What does AIM
of
say
bank.
about that?
I was in the left seat flying, but when I was making a right turn, I can't see my checkpoint, so the guy in the right seat was calling me on those checkpoints. When I was flying and looking at a checkpoint, he was calling my performance calls, saying if I was in a climb or descent, what altitude and airspeed I was at. And then the guy in the center seat was running the throttle to make sure I kept at the correct energy management state for that phase of flight.
It may be work, but this air crew is having a blast. In the back, they do somersaults when we hit 0 and negative G's. Marine Corps Sergeant Zach Williford is a flight engineer on Fat Albert.
Through the dynamic moves of the airplane, knowing what's coming up next and what we just did, and then being able to hold on at the right time, it's a lot of fun.
And that fun comes from all over the flight envelope.
One of the best things that we get to do with the aircraft is max performance. So we fly it to every single limitation in the book. We go from the lowest speed, possibly 95 knots before we do the pushover, and we go 320 knots in the flat. So we go the entire range of speed. It's a pretty big delta on the speed capability, 225 knots, and then we also go to the max bank, max pitch on both up and down, and then we also go to the max G's on the aircraft. So you need to know what those limitations are. You're always refining what those feel like.
Including one of the most dramatic landings you'll ever see. The airplane comes down at 45 degrees before rounding out at the last moment. The props go into beta, the brakes smoke up the tires. And inside, feet fly over heads as our thrill ride comes to a screeching halt. And these are real maneuvers used in combat theaters around the world, demonstrated here to show the crowds at home what it's like for those who serve.
This tour was a great opportunity for me to be able to tell the story of what we did every day in the active duty fleet around the world. So the whole reason I wanted to come to team was to tell that story and to show people what we do for a living and to show what they've entrusted us with to do.
It's a powerful message told through dramatic service on Fat Albert Airlines. In Lakeland, Florida, Paul Harrop, AOPA Live.
I forgot about that shot. I might have taken that out. I'm sorry if I ruined anybody's dinner there, but there always had to be one on that. But imagine that being your everyday flight. That's what they do in combat areas with the Super Hercules. And for me to ride on it in the back of this tube with very little visibility out to horizon, feeling, geez, and I had no idea what was happening next. It was very much a thrill ride, a lot of fun trying to keep the camera. But it was their everyday thing. That's what they do for a living, serving our country quite dramatically on this transport aircraft. So as exciting as it is for us to see what they do in those combat maneuvers, imagine how exciting it would be for your friends or your students' friends to just see a picture of you in a 150 or anything you're flying. Oh, hey, that's pretty cool to somebody that hasn't been as jaded as some of us have gotten getting to go on fun experiences like that. The point being is we are all storytellers. We all are empowered to tell this story of aviation. We're all in this together, and we all need to tell the story so others want to come into our realm here. I've seen a lot of people that have used social media to tell that story, and they've used it very well. Some of them are sitting right here. The Latimer and Griffith contingent from north central Texas does a really good job, especially through their GIFT Academy, Girls in Flight Training Academy, of sharing pictures of smiling people in airplanes. Okay, no big whoop, but that person then shares that picture, and all their friends see it and go, hey, you flying those little airplanes? Tell me about that. And that provides an opportunity to start a conversation that hopefully can lead somebody into wanting to go take a discovery flight or signing up to become a private pilot, or, hey, maybe even inspire a career. But it starts with being visible and telling that story out. And it doesn't have to be video productions. It doesn't have to be magazine articles. It doesn't have to be comprehensive websites. There's a lot of people, many of whom are in this room, do a great job for a living telling the story of aviation. But I want to empower all of you to go out there and get and spread at the grassroots level on social media with your friends what we can't reach. We can't reach out and have that personal conversation that all of you guys can. And I hope you can look at some of these examples on how you can start that conversation. Now, storytelling isn't always something obvious. Sometimes you find something that's beneath the surface. I got an assignment early in my tenure with AOPA to go do a piece with Sean D. Tucker, the aerobatic performer. And if you've been in a room with Sean D. Tucker for more than 5 seconds, you know he is always amped way up, turned up to 11 if anybody remembers that reference, and just broke the knob clean off. So I was expecting a big, high-intensity, really Sean D. Tucker experience. But we got there, and we realized Sean is also a dancer.
Sean D. Tucker doesn't just fly the airplane. He dances in the sky.
Be a dancer. Up we go. All right. Right there. Relax. And roll it, baby. That's really hard, isn't it?
Oh, awesome. And today, I'm lucky enough to be his partner for a lesson above Central Virginia.
Remember this, we don't learn this stuff overnight. Yeah. Sure is fun though, isn't it?
Oh, it's a tremendous amount of fun. We did loops and rolls and an inverted flat spin.
There's one. There's two. 3, 4, you recover. Power off.
The dance was graceful but powerful.
How do you feel?
I like it. I have
having trouble picking out what points to look at for my rollout on that one.
Yeah, but that's okay. I just love the challenge of aerobatic flying, you know. I've dedicated my whole life to this, and I'm still learning. I am still so infatuated with trying to do it correctly.
For an aerobatic newbie, some of the steps were a bit challenging.
Let's go. Keep her going, keep her going.
But I got high marks from one of the best.
There we go.
She's really good. I mean, she really took control of that airplane. She wanted to harmonize herself with the airplane. What I mean by that is she wanted to understand the nuance of this flying machine and how to just caress it through the sky. And she was excellent at it.
Even if my moves weren't quite as graceful.
Perfect. Can I do a Shanti Tucker ballistic? That's how fast it will really roll. You ready? Yep. We'll do about 3 rolls. Okay, you ready? And hit it. You're a prima ballerina, baby. All right. Very good. You're doing great. I'll fly with you anytime.
This is so much fun.
I agree.
Alyssa Miller, AOPA Live.
Thank you. That's what happens if you look beneath the surface at a story, if you don't take something at face value and you really pay attention to some of the nuance that's there. He kept making all these dancing references, and I looked at the video and I expected it to be a lot more abrupt and dramatic, but really it was this beautiful caressing of this flying machine, as he likes to call them, and so that piece came together in that manner. Well, I do have a great fortune in my career to work for AOPA in this role. I never take an instance for granted. I always try to be a good steward for our viewers and our members and try to let them live vicariously through these experiences I feel so blessed to have. But I'm often asked, what are your favorite stories? What's the best one you've ever done? Well, it's hard because it's much like the airplane you last flew. It's whatever one you last flew is your favorite. Whatever one you did last, you still have that emotional attachment to. But there are several that do stand out, and one of them is right here.
Everything's down low. Most people that do this kind of work really like to fly low.
It's a sunny winter day near Fort Myers, Florida. The Lee County Mosquito Control District is hard at work, keeping pests at bay. At less than 100 feet AGL, they're on a mission to help keep the people of Southwest Florida healthy.
It demands a lot of professionalism. There's not a lot of room for error, and it's always challenging.
But these aviators are up to being down low, and quality of life in the area depends on it.
When Congress was going to stop Florida as a state, they sent a congressman down here, and after touring Florida, he came back and recommended that they just leave it as a territory, leave it for the Indians because it was uninhabitable because of the mosquitoes.
Florida is rife with places for mosquitoes to thrive. The Mosquito Control District takes a very scientific approach to vector control. Using a diverse fleet of aircraft that ranges from Turbine DC-3s to King Airs and even Hueys, they treat water with larvicide, spray to kill adult mosquitoes, and keep a close scientific watch out for diseases they may spread. Much of their work is done via helicopter. Today, they're making the rounds to chicken coops stationed around the county. A pilot and a scientist make hops in a Bell 407. Mosquitoes bite chickens too, so blood samples taken from penned-up poultry help keep watch for diseases the flying pests may bring to the area. Back at base, there's a lab that processes samples and a breeding room to test larvicide formulations. In the past, the dirty work was done by harsh chemicals. These days, scientifically engineered mosquito hormones work to keep larvae from reaching maturity. But the science doesn't stop in the lab.
We have a lot of islands, a lot of coastal area. Most of this, all this
A sophisticated GIS mapping program takes data from the field and integrates it with a plan for aerial attack. The program loads polygons into an aerial application navigation and automation system called the AgNav GIA.
AgNav system will actually guide you to that as a waypoint to that polygon, so you don't have to look on a map or find it on the map before you leave or while you're flying to try to find that polygon. It just guides you to it and lines you up with your first swath, and it turns it on for you.
The system takes any guesswork out of the pilot's workload, automatically turning the spray on and back off again. All the pilot has to do is fly, but at a few dozen feet AGL and 60 knots, flying is a full-time job.
There's obstacles, there's dead trees. You'll be flying along and all of a sudden you see there's a dead tree that the boom could snag on, and you have to kind of gradually ease the helicopter up so you don't snag the boom. We also have a lot of birds in this area, so there's a lot of wildlife that will end up flying in front of you while you're flying by, and obviously you don't want to hit a bald eagle, so it takes a lot of vigilance for the birds that are flying around.
Vigilance, skill, and a whole lot of nerve.
Mosquito control is very necessary. There's a lot of mosquito-borne diseases, malaria, chikungunya, West Nile virus, and it causes a lot of pain and suffering and can even cause death. Without doing mosquito control here in Florida, we would still have these viruses that are not completely gone, but they're very much under control.
Thanks to the brave pilots of the Lee County Mosquito Control District. In Fort Myers, Florida, Paul Harrop, AOPA Live.
Thank you very much. I was fortunate to get to go on that story. Amy, where are you? Amy was writing that story. She did all the research and legwork. I just came and showed up with a camera. So thank you very much for your hard work on that. She did a great piece in the magazine for us. If you have a chance, you should look it up. Speaking of looking up, that was the very first time I've ever looked up at an old retired man, and I'll never forget this image as long as I live. He's standing there in his shorts and his house robe having coffee on his balcony, and I'm looking up at him from a helicopter. It was the weirdest moment. We just kind of had this little connection. It's like, yep, I see you, and yep, this is actually happening. All right, good day, sir. And so, to get to tell that story was pretty awesome, not just from an experiential standpoint, but this is a really good example of how aviation is serving America. We say general aviation serves America. Well, Florida has some really bad stuff that the mosquitoes can spread if these pilots aren't out there flying like that. And they have these mosquito control districts all over the state, and without it, it would be probably not habitable. So kudos to them for being willing to fly like that. I don't know that I care to ride amongst the condos ever again, because that was harrowing. But one last piece, and then I will let you all go. But sometimes when you're trying to tell a good story, everything comes together. You have access to a great airplane. You have formation, trained and qualified pilots with you. You have great weather, and you have the willingness of people to get together and do something. And it turns into something even better than you had hoped for. That's very, very rare in television, that your producer's fantasy comes not only true, but even better. And I was just completely humbled to have the opportunity to both shoot and tell this story.
Rare is an understatement. Beautiful does not do it justice. It's hard to describe the Griffin Lionheart.
It was inspired by the Staggerwing G model. We like to think of it as what Walter Beach would have done had he had the composite materials and tooling that we have today.
Larry French envisioned a composite home-built kit that would bring the golden era back to life.
He wanted something that could haul 6 adults with a lot of room, get there fast, and something that looked classy.
6 kits were sold, and this, the factory demonstrator, is the only currently flying example. Powered by a Wright R985 with a 10-to-1 blower, this big cat can go.
It's got the useful load and payload basically of a de Havilland Beaver, so we're 5,200 pounds max gross. We cruise economy at 185 knots burning. We can get her back to 18 gallons an hour at 8,500 feet.
Everywhere Lionheart prowls, it draws a crowd.
It's fun, it draws attention.
Which brings it full circle for current caretaker Chris Davis.
I first met this airplane in, I believe it was '99, which was actually my first trip to Oshkosh. And I talked the ear off of Gordy, who was the test pilot and the demo pilot, and Larry French. They were both there showing off the airplane. And, you know, I was a young kid at the time, and just, it was cool. I never thought, fast forward the clock, what's that, 12, 15 years, and I would come to know the airplane, get to ride in it, and then be the guy flying it.
Larry French no longer flies the airplane and allows Chris to be a steward of it, so people can still see what might have been if Walter Beach had been around a half-century later.
We let everybody that assumes it's hard to fly just believe that. It just demands a little attention. It's got a few little idiosyncrasies. You don't fly it like a Cub. You fly it like a Lionheart, but it's not really that difficult to fly.
On the night we took Lionheart up, we shared the pattern with a Beach Staggerwing over Tennessee. Both airplanes are a remarkable sight, but Lionheart roars.
It's got a very distinctive whistle that we affectionately call it Lionheart's roar. And you can hear it in the cockpit once you hit around 200 knots. Before that, it's just everybody else around, you know, can hear
it. Flying this airplane makes you feel like you were back in time, when design and function flowed perfectly together, when radial engines were the norm, and when class, taste, and style came with staggered biplane wings.
It's a special airplane. There were only 6 built. And like I said, it's basically a stagger wing of the next generation.
In Tullahoma, Tennessee, Paul Harrop, AOPA Live.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So get out there and tell your story, tell your students' story, tell your friends' stories. Get people to be able to see these stories and hear these stories, and I guarantee you that they will want to become a part of it. We're all characters in this story of aviation. Let's get out there and tell it. Thank you so much for your time. Now I'll have Craig come back up. Craig, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
You'll excuse me when I tell them that it only took Paul about 3 weeks to get us all talking like this throughout AOPA. I love that voice. I love the work you've done. It's been a great path from that Husky flight to Florida to what you're doing today. So thanks for all you're doing. Thank you for your very, very important message. Appreciate it. Thank you, Paul Harrop.